They might not have hair, but they really do care about faith and life. Two bald pastors.
Welcome to Two Bald Pastors, a podcast about real faith and real life. I'm Geoff Sinibaldo.
I'm Joe McGarry.
And I'm Dan Rift.
And we are three follically challenged, but let's face it, gorgeous, handsome men. Talking about ELCA, world hunger, and disaster response. But we have with us today Dan Rift, who is the director for ELCA World Hunger and the Disaster Appeal. So we welcome you, Dan, to being with us. Thanks for taking some time to hang out.
Thanks, Geoff. Thanks, Joe. Thank you for the opportunity. I need a haircut, so I think I've got more hair than anyone else on the three of us right now. So
that is definitely true.
So, Dan, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your role and some of the work you do. I know we're going to be talking, I hope at some length, about the event that's coming up on September 24th, but maybe first we can just learn a little bit about you. So if you could just tell us what's your job with the ELCA and how that works for you.
Sure. So for 11 plus years now, I've worked with ELCA, encouraging congregations and individuals to support the work that we do together to address hunger and to address disaster response. That's also included from time to time things like HIV/AIDS and the malaria campaign and some of the special initiatives that we've done. New England Synod, a lot of the individuals that are part of this synod, congregations have been really supportive, encouraging, enthusiastic about that work. But I mean, nationally, this has been one of the hallmarks of what it means to be ELCA Lutheran, to be Lutheran in general. I think if we go all the way back to the whole movement that started around Luther, it really took birth to say, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus Christ, to be a person of faith shaped by Jesus. And that meant to take responsibility, to bend oneself outward to the world, and take responsibility for neighbor. The whole idea of collecting up resources and taking care for neighbor, the whole idea of the table of the Eucharist being shared outward to the world, all came out of that movement. And we live in that same way as we respond around the world. And we happen to be terrifically effective at responding to hunger in our own community, but also to do that around the world. And so it's really been an honor, but a lot of fun to encourage this. And I have to say, that's the other hallmark for us. No other place have I seen people get together around a subject as serious and potentially as difficult as hunger. And then we do it with such kind of joy and hope as, and the malaria campaign is making pipe cleaner mosquitoes, or all the things that we do with good gifts every year related to ELCA World Hunger, and to do it with such celebration because we know we're making a difference around the world. And so I get to kind of encourage that and share a lot of good news of what we're doing, and it's been a lot of fun. I got started doing this actually with disaster response in 1989 with Hurricane Hugo. So I've been doing this disaster response and hunger stuff. I got started in hunger with crop walks when I was in high school. So I've been doing this for a long time. We have cut the rate of hunger in the world by more than half, actually by almost 2/3 of what it was when I was in high school. And so we have made astounding progress against extreme hunger in this world, over and against what people said would be dire predictions of how terrible hunger would be at this point. And we have made a huge difference, and the church has been really setting the models of how to be effective and really been critical to that. And so it's been really an astounding arc of narrative, and really a lot inspiring to see. And partly
Yeah.
because we're all part of it. It just takes all
Yeah.
of us doing it. That's the good news that I get to share. And people
Yeah.
forget what a difference we're making in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That I know so many congregations that participate in some kind of world hunger effort.
Right.
And now with things that are happening in the world with disasters and just how quickly our church moves into those places and how we come together as congregations to help financially support different appeals in order to do the work that God's calling us to do is really incredible.
Well, we have done a couple surveys. I think 90, depends on which one you look, 92 or 94% of our congregations in the ELCA have some kind of sustained local hunger response. So
Yep.
we really, this is when we talk about the fact that we are people who are breaking bread in this world. I mean, that is just our identity. But we also are people who are understanding that doesn't just mean local. It means that we've really stepped this up in this time of COVID-19, but it also means we're doing it. We've also seen that challenge extends much further than just the footprints that we walk or the reach that we have. And that's been important because the most critical and extreme hunger in the world actually is probably beyond our reach in many ways.
Yeah.
That kind of life-taking, life-changing, future-robbing hunger that we see in a lot of places in the world are also things that we have a chance to make a difference in. And that's why we bind together to do that work. And as I said, we really do it well.
Yeah,
I'm really
definitely
pleased to hear you say that during this pandemic, we've really stepped it up, especially because I know for a lot of people, this has been a time of isolation, loss, lament, anxiety, of course, dealing with the virus itself and the health problems and even death in so many places. It's been a real downer, to say the least, for a lot of folks. And even if you haven't been directly affected, you have been, because you've got the weight of everything going on in the world. And it is good news to hear that our faith still shines a bright light in the midst of that, even when all that is being experienced. So thanks for bringing some good news and shining it out, because I know even for us, it's good to hear it. I mean, it's easy to think, okay, well, what are we doing in our congregation right now as people are trying to figure out, do you come back to being in person? What are you doing with online stuff? How are you keeping people connected? It's all very congregation focused. And at the same time, I know both Joe and I serve congregations and are leaders that want to be generous people. We want to be active in the world. We want to live our faith out, not just be caretakers of it. So it's a joy to hear that, Dan. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Well, I think to some extent, one of the things that we did really early on with the ELCA World Hunger is we decided we had the opportunity. We've had this little model that we started a couple years ago of small grants. We call them daily bread grants. They're $500 grants to congregation-based hunger initiatives. And the whole idea was we'll give you $500 if you can raise $500 from other people locally to start a new initiative that you feel would be really effective to respond to hunger in your community. And the idea of that grant was to build up the capacity to raise more money within communities. It was to help congregations to learn how to go out and ask for additional resources locally, because we're not always good at that. We're
Right,
sometimes
right.
very good at the ministry. Sometimes we're not good at inviting people to participate or to support the ministry. At this point this year, we just said, look, here's $500. Go try to raise money, but we're not going to make it conditional at all. if you have something you think you can do, and this was in March, if you in early April, if you have something you think you can do that's a natural extension of what you've done, just go do it. And the reason we did that is because we just saw the situation where people were kind of paralyzed. They just didn't, what can we do, And we knew that congregations knew what their community needed, but they needed some impetus to get started. And these were astoundingly successful. So we did a second round of that afterwards, and so we've done a couple rounds of this, and our little bit of money has raised thousands and thousands of dollars, more than 4 times, 5 times what we put in of other money that was raised through other
Wow.
sources from other places that people. So it was just let's get this seeded. It was kind of the mustard seed approach. And I think this kind of thing, and that was our little glimpse into this. I think that's been repeated over and over again, where people have found new ways to do ministry. This adaptation into ways to do ministry is happening all over, and not just in the hunger area. But I also get concerned, and especially for rostered leaders, and not only rostered leaders, but lay leaders, those who have been key leaders in congregations, that the handoff to other leaders gets to be really difficult in this situation, especially when we get so dependent on technology to be able to reach to people. And I think we stressed social isolation when we needed to be talking about physical isolation. So physical isolation is really important, and social connection is really important in this moment. And this comes out of disaster response. We've learned this in disaster response, that social connection is actually the most important thing in the middle of a disaster and post-disaster. We need to keep physical distance, but we need social closeness in this time. And the church
Social connection
is the place where we are built for that. So I don't know if you're seeing this in your congregations, but in a lot of congregations, they're seeing greater participation than they typically will see, but it's harder to make that participation happen. You know what I mean? And it's a real stress on leadership.
There was a big learning curve for many people in my congregation in adapting to technology. The first time I ran a Zoom call for people in my congregation for a fellowship time, one person came on and didn't realize her computer didn't have a webcam or a mic. So she had to go out and adapt to that. And but since then has been able to participate. And my calls that I make to my people to check in as we were going along in the pandemic, they went from a 5-10 minute check-in to a 15, 20 minute, 30 minute conversation, because they just wanted that connection that they weren't typically getting on a regular basis.
Well, we've seen adaptation happen in the hunger work that we do all over the globe. And so that's been really wonderful. Our great worry is we have made, we just year in and year out, we have such regular support coming in from individuals and congregations that we pretty well know that we can build a commitment around the world and around the country of about $21 million for our programmatic work. So we have a mission spending plan this year of $21.5 million. And we were right on line we were going into Lent, and Lent's our second biggest time, and Advent and Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, our biggest time. And then all of a sudden we just hit the skids in terms of everything slowed down for us. So we've had to do a lot of adaptation because we don't want to slow down in program. What everything is saying is that there are going to be greater impact from COVID-19, more deaths from COVID-19, and greater impact from COVID-19 as a result of hunger than there will be from the virus itself.
Wow.
This is the big kind of thing that's not being talked about, I think, internationally, is the death and the rate from extreme hunger. The impact of extreme hunger will double this year, is predicted by this year, by the end of the year internationally. that means all this progress that we've made over the last 15 or almost 20 years will be temporarily undone. And the stunting in children will be tripled. And that will have longer term impact.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
in the midst of that, the last thing we want to do is roll back our programs because we don't have as much support. And our worry is congregations aren't meeting in place. They're not going to do all those crazy activities of putting up their good gifts trees, and they're not going to be
Yep.
doing
Yep.
all their things with the children and noisy offerings and all that stuff, which is about half of our resources. And and so we're trying to create other ways to invite people to participate, because we know if we can invite people, they're going to support us. I mean, we got a great group of people who support ELCA World Hunger, but they support us through their congregations. And so we're just trying to create ways to remind people, hey, we're out here and this is as important as ever. And if we happen to get more money this year, we got more programs. I mean, we can expand the work, no problem, but we don't want to have to roll back the work.
sure.
And so Rick Steves, who's kind of that travel guru guy, Rick Steves,
Yep.
We love Rick Steves. We've been watching him for 20 years.
so he has teamed up with Bishop Eaton, and the two of them, by the way, make a great team. They have chemistry between the two of them, and they are inviting the church at large and anybody who wants to come to a big event, a fundraiser event, virtual event on the 24th of September at 8 p.m. Eastern to be online as a virtual fundraiser to support ELCA World Hunger. We have some folks who we got some special stuff going on. We're trying to raise $250,000 that night. We got some people who are going to jump in and help to encourage some giving during that night. And so we are hoping to attract an audience. The information on that is online at elca.org/hunger fundraiser. That's all one term. It's also on the ELCA website. We're asking people to sign up, but you can also just join that night. And so that's what I'm really pushing and I have to say, we hope it will be entertaining. They are going to let me get on there every once in a while. So you can, that'll be a good, because that gives you a moment to break if you have to go get coffee when you see me there. Come back on and enjoy Rick Steves. And then he's pre-recorded some stuff out of a video that he's done under Hunger and Hope. We got some really good storytelling out of the Daily Bread grants and the COVID-19 work that we've been doing as a church. It will make you proud to have been there. It will make you excited. I think it's well worth your time. We want to make it worth your time. And I'm really glad that you guys are gathering people to know about that event. So thank you for that.
Well, that's our pleasure.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. I've recently learned about it, and the more that I hear, I think it's just a great representation for what our church can do and what our church is doing, and letting people know about it. And one of the things that I think a lot of churches are asking right now is, how do I let people know what the ELCA is, what it's about, what it's doing for the world? And this is a great opportunity for every church to share this and say, take some time and watch this video and see what we are doing and how lives are being changed because of how we are preaching the gospel.
Hey, Joe, that's a really good idea, because you don't have to be ELCA to enjoy Rick Steves and to come in and listen to this thing. And it would be well worth it. And they will get an invitation to give for ELCA World Hunger, but just finding out about what it means to care about the world and to know about that is really good. Yeah. And to find out about some of the stuff that's going on in the world through the eyes of the church is a great way to find out, because you're learning about it in a spirit of hope, not despair. And these days, hope is a rare commodity.
It is.
Yep. So with that, I mean, we've experienced throughout the country a number of disasters between hurricanes this season already and the wildfires out west. And I know our church is pretty actively involved with some of those things. You want to share a little bit about ELCA's disaster response?
Sure. Let me pivot over to that, and just to say, it is astounding to see how the church has responded. I mean, I think we've got two huge advantages for us, and one is we have a really, really connected and resilient church. It's it's sad and unfortunate to say, but the places where we've experienced disasters this year are places where folks have been fairly well practiced at responding to disasters, and so those synods and congregations have been, in those locations, were fairly ready to respond. And then our Lutheran social service organizations are strong in those locations as well. And so really, the stories go back to the tornadoes that hit in Tennessee and then hit in the Southeast earlier this year. And I bring it up because the tornadoes in Tennessee hit before COVID-19. And we literally, Lutheran Disaster Response rewrote the manual on how to do volunteer cleanup and keep safe in COVID-19, under COVID-19, how volunteers can be mobilized. And that volunteer kind of protocol is being used by a number of other organizations now. And so
Wow.
that's really, really critical for a number of organizations post-storm. I think the unspoken disaster right now, the one that's not being remembered, is what's going on in Iowa with the derecho and the storms that went through Iowa, which hit 3 of our congregations and a lot of communities there, especially Cedar Rapids. And then the hurricanes that came through, especially in Louisiana, and now the fires that have gone through in California and in Oregon. And in all of those locations, we have frontline responses that are going on through the synods, the congregations, and through the social ministry organizations, Lutheran social service affiliated organizations in those locations, as well as some of the East Coast responses in North Carolina and other locations. And that's just been really heartening to see those going on. I'd say that our general support to Lutheran disaster response over the last couple of years has helped us to be able to respond to that and to COVID-19 more than the immediate financial responses. So, and that's been a real gift. And I think for me, kind of a testimony to abundance, that we have had some great responses in the last year that allowed us to carry into this year. And we're hoping, that we will continue to see that kind of response. But we started strong this year, and that has helped us to stay the course. So, and then I think tomorrow is we're recording this on September 10th. So even though it's been 19 years, but tomorrow, September 11th, continues to be, to me, a moment to remember that tragedy doesn't just leave our hearts quickly, and so for many of us, it's a day of remembrance that we carry the witness of many with us, and this kind of response, both in tragedy and in hope, and the way that it shapes us continues. And I think the churches continue, the response that this church had, Lutheran Disaster Response, the ELCA, on 9/11 and the months and years that followed, to show the reason why our staying with that for so long is so important. And so even as we're facing new disasters, I think the long trajectory, the long arc that we take is so important. So thanks for asking for about the immediate, but I also think the long walk that we take with people in tragedy is important as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, relationships are so key, and it's nice that we have structures, people, and a plan. I guess I would say a strategy that's all about keeping those things going. It's not just about getting a photo op and getting out of there, or
Yeah.
dropping stuff off and we're done. This is about long-term care, and it's about loving people. And I mean, that's the heart of what faith is, I think. So, yeah, it's really touching, and it's great to be a part of that. So, thanks for sharing that as well. Besides this event coming up on September 24th, which we're all going to enjoy and spread the news about, what else are you looking forward to coming up?
Well, so if if you are part of an ELCA congregation and if you've seen our stuff for Advent before, you will be seeing it coming to you soon, mostly virtually, including our Advent calendar and all that kind of fun stuff. So we are hoping, we like to. My attitude about this, I've been doing this now for more than a decade for ELCA, is that I just hope that I always want our stuff for ELCA World Hunger to be an add-on for any network or any activity of a church to make whatever fun thing that you're doing a little bit more meaningful. So, hey, we're going to get together and do something. Well, let's do something for ELCA World Hunger. That will make it more profound, that'll add on something for us. So we try to do that, especially during Advent. So if you've got some activities and you want to do something, and they're at home activities, and that's good for this year. So we're hoping that'll be good. And mostly we're thinking the same. I mean, we're experiencing at our church and my church life at our church is exactly what you're experiencing, which is trying to figure it out as we're going along. We're making it up and we're figuring it out as we're going along, and we're adapting. And that's a kind of a fun, at times, arduous at times, spirit-led kind of journey. And I wish the best to both of you and to all the listeners that you have of how you're figuring out how to be church as we are living in this year. I mean, I remember back, I look at the stuff from a century ago and look at what happened in the 20s after the Spanish flu, and, kind of hold out a lot of hope that this will give rise to new opportunities and new things and new ideas. And I can kind of sense that might be possible as well. So I keep my kind of spirit of optimism and hope in the middle of all this. As a person who's lived in doing hunger and disaster work for 3 decades, I can still see that on the horizon. So
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. And like you said, you've been doing this for a while, but I still hear in your voice your enthusiasm for doing this work. And it really comes out. It really comes out. And I'm so thankful for that, because we need that kind of energy and enthusiasm and excitement to get us energized and enthusiastic about doing this work, because it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming sometimes, but seeing the good work that we are doing, and the change and the transformation that can happen in people's lives, because we at our congregational level have an opportunity to, raise some money, but we don't think it's a lot. But when we all come together,
yep,
and we all have that big, all of our little gifts get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it really does make a difference.
Yeah, Joe, I have to say, it is good to pause every once in a while, because I think what looks like, well, we're just doing this thing in our congregation. Congregations are doing profound things. In these activities that we're doing, really profound, making profound differences. We say, well, it's just a few pigs that get to a community. Those few pigs can change the trajectory of lives. And
Yep.
I mean, and they
Yep.
do, and I've seen it. And I mean, I absolutely want people to know this is not just kind of a nice story that gets made up on somebody's desk. I mean, I've seen this, and it's not just that we give the pigs. I mean, the pigs. This is like pig clubs that get started, and kids are drawn into a community, and there's accountability, and it changes kids' lives because they become responsible. And then when they need to go to school, those pigs can get to be sold, or they need health care. Those pigs become the resources that a family have. I mean, it literally changes the trajectory of lives. And for us,
Yep.
it's a special activity, and it seems like, oh, just something minor that we've done. But it is really profound activities that we are engaged in. And so thank you for that, Joe. And thank you for that, Geoff.
Yeah.
And thanks for everyone who is participating in this.
Well, thank you, and I hope to see a lot of our congregations on the 24th at 8:00 online, and I hope we do reach that goal of $250,000 that we can raise, and so I know that I will be there that night. I'm sure Geoff and his family will be there that night as well.
Yep.
And we'll see what we can do together as a church. So thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. And once again, we are the Two Bald Pastors, helping you connect your faith with your life. I'm Joe McGarry.
I'm Geoff Sinibaldo.
And thank you. Appreciate it. Dan Rift out.
They might not have hair, but they really do